great to see everybody again. Phenomenal weekend this past weekend, not only for our football team and our players, but for the state of West Virginia and this community and everybody that bleeds green. I think it also gives college football its shot a boost of energy. I think this is what college football is all about. It's about two historical programs battling it out on the football field with class, coaches, scheming back and forth, fan bases respecting each other. So it was a really good weekend for college football and obviously for Marshall University. Really proud of the way our players competed. As I said after the game, the things that we asked them to do on a daily basis, they were able to do. And as you know, with this generation, the reward sometimes doesn't come as fast as they would like it, but for them to be able to put in the work since January all the way through the spring, all the way through the summer, and be able to start the season the way we've started the season is a plus. We also got to remember, we talked to them about understanding how we've won these two games, not who we've beaten. And if we can remember the how and repeat the how of how we won these games with great preparation, playing extremely hard, and being really consistent in our execution on game day, we'll be able to replicate this feeling more often than not. Obviously got a lot of really good opponents coming up on our schedule, starting with Bowling Green. Really excited about the opportunity to go to Bowling Green, Ohio, and play in our old conference foes in the MAC. Coach Leffler and his staff have done a really good job. Two really hard-fought battles between two really good schools, UCLA and EKU. They pose a lot of challenges for what we are facing. The toughest challenge is going to be: are we able, in our building and in our practice and in our meetings, are we able to go back to what helped us win the first two games with preparation throughout this week, on and off the field, taking care of our bodies, making sure we're studying the film, making sure we're practicing really hard, then going out and playing with the same intensity that we did the first 2 weeks, and then being able to execute consistently. I think that's the one thing that's probably stood out the most for us as a program, is we've been pretty consistent in our execution. Not perfect, but we've made our layups and we've eliminated the Marshall beaters. So with that, last week, Players of the Week, Kalen LeBourne, you guys got a chance to meet with earlier, and Stephen Gilmore. Players of the Week, two guys. We could have listed 10 guys. Obviously, whenever the running back has success, I think that's a lot of people that go into that: the O-line, the tight ends, the quarterback decision-making, the wide receivers blocking, coaches getting them prepared, and then obviously Stephen Gilmore on the defensive side. Again, defensive line, everybody else being in coverage, so the ball has to go to the guy that you're covering. So although these are very significant and deserved individual awards, collectively we've all worked really hard to get to this point. So with that, open up with questions.
Paul Swan, WRBC Huntington. How has your team responded to cutting out the noise with all the extra attention now that you've beaten Notre Dame? For you preach consistency, don't worry about the logo on a helmet, but to get a win like that, there's a lot of extra noise now.
Well, I think a couple things. One, I don't think you can cut it out of this generation's age because they live with the phone in their hand. Obviously, here in Huntington, you can't go anywhere without seeing a Marshall fan, which is great. What we're talking about is managing the noise. Well, how do you manage it? Understand that, yes, people and outside forces are still very excited about the win, but we've got to go back to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And when you go back and you really look at the game, there's a lot of areas that in-house we know we need to get better at. Our special teams right now, we're struggling. Obviously, we got young specialists, so you're going to have some growing pains. There's also some areas where we can get better with the other guys around them. Offensively, third down, 4 of 12, we won't beat Huntington High School if we continue on that, on that path. Our red zone and low red offense, we got to get more touchdowns and field goals. So there are a lot of things. We didn't tackle as great in the fourth quarter. So there are a lot of things that you can use to combat or manage the noise. I think you run into issues when you kind of just let the noise overshadow the areas of correction. So we've got really good leadership. I think our culture is really good. The beauty of it is, a year before I got here, they were ranked 15 in the country, so they've been there before, and we use that. and how, getting all that praise and all of those things then took their focus off the main goal, which kind of allowed them to kind of shake a little bit. So it's good to have. It's good to have a little bit of leadership. It's good to have some older guys that have been through this before. And then obviously our culture and our coaching staff got to really keep our guys focused.
You talked about the success in the running game. Obviously, that starts up front with some of the blocks laid by the offensive line. But for guys like Stacy, Devin, Ethan to get in on some of those blocks, what's that mean? For you as a coach when you see that happen?
Yeah, I think it's collective buy-in. I think everybody understands their role. Everybody understands how them doing their role really, really good will benefit them somewhere down the line. I think you look at the last drive, we were able to run the ball consistently all day with some tight end help. And the last drive, Devin ends up using that run scheme to create an opportunity for him to get the ball and get a big first down on that last drive. So I think once you get collective buy-in, everybody understands their role. Everybody understands that me doing my job is going to create value for me somewhere down the line. And the more consistently I can do my job, the more value it's going to create, the more of opportunity I'm going to have for me to be able to make a play. And I think that helps, kind of bring more value to everybody working together in the run game.
Cassie with WWK. Coach, kind of going back to the noise, you guys are right outside that AP top 25. How much do you guys pay attention to that, if at all?
I don't. I'm not, it's not coach talk, but 2-0, there's going to be a lot of people in that top 25 that when it's all said and done, it won't be. Again, I think the beauty of Marshall is there's been success here before. So this is not something that's completely new to everybody in the building. I've been at places where the first time we got ranked, it was like, man, we made it. And some programs are able to handle it, some are not. I think, again, having the success here before, being ranked higher than, we are right now or whatever we may be in the past, and the older guys in here knowing how it affected the team helps kind of keep us grounded and focused on what we need to do to stay ranked or to continue to have success or to continue to have good practices. And I think that helps a lot.
Hi, Coach. John Raby with the Associated Press. I saw that you talking yesterday about this, about the attention that you got. You suddenly look at your phone and you see all these text messages, and just talk about the attention that, your extended network of loved ones and everybody that just, how overwhelming was that? Is that something you've never seen before, or is that something that's...
Yeah, it's humbling because I think, again, sometimes the head coach gets too much credit and too much criticism and praise. It really comes down to the players. I think the players played really, really hard. I think they competed really, really hard. I think they've bought into what we're asking them to do. So to see that, kind of outside, rush of congratulatory messages and well wishes, it's humbling, but it's also kind of rewarding to know that your players are creating, opportunities for other people to see your impact on their lives. And that probably to me is more important than the 350 text messages that I responded to, is that the players are actually showing the world, yes, coach and the coaching staff and the training staff and the medical staff and Marshall University is having a positive impact on my life. We talked about when we recruited a lot of these guys, the ultimate goal is that the players have more success in life because they were a part of Marshall University. That's the ultimate goal. I want to win every game, every game, every game, every game. The reality of it is very few teams go undefeated forever. It is what it is. But if players can come here and have such an experience and have such an impact on this community and the community have an impact on them that they are more successful in life because of it, then ultimately we've achieved our goal. And that's what we want to be able to do. And I think Saturday was just a small fraction of seeing that start to come to fruition.
Coach Grant Traylor, HD Media. One of the things that comes from a win like that, you see the buzzwords, Marshall upsets Notre Dame. Whenever you all watch film on Sunday, how much was the message that this wasn't an upset? Because when you look statistically and getting that message across to your guys, like, you all dominated this game. You all
Yeah, well, first of all, Notre Dame is a phenomenal program, so I don't know if we upset them or we just had more points than they did at the end of the game. I think upset comes from public opinion. You know, I don't think anybody in our building thought we upset them. Actually, we were a little disappointed that the score wasn't 11 and that Micah doesn't have a third pick. Not because we're trying to rub it in, but because we allowed some mistakes on our part to give up an extra point, to give up an extra possession that, you know, we could have prevented. So I think upset is from a public perception. I think in our building it was, you know, hey, you know what? When we prepare really well and we play really hard and we execute, we got a chance to be pretty good. Does that mean that we're going to carry over to this week? Well, hopefully. Yesterday we had a good practice. Hopefully today we can, you know, maximize that. But I think upset's a public perception. You know, probably for you guys that bet. You know, probably like Morehouse. He probably had the over. It's okay. But I think that goes into more of that public perception, which is fine because, you know, we only look at what our expectations are here in this building. And it's not coach talk. It's just the reality of it. I mean, I don't show the betting line or I don't show that we're 12-point up. Or I don't show that. You know, I mean, I'm sure they see it, but I don't, you know, we don't talk about, hey, we got to cover the spread this week. You know, so I think, again, it's a little bit of, you know, what makes college football so great. You know, the fans have an opinion. The media conglomerate have an opinion, but ultimately it's the two teams on the field that, you know, decide, you know, wins and losses.
Hey, Coach, Keith Morehouse, WSAZ. I don't bet on games.
There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
You know, the atmosphere of Saturday will be diametrically different than what you just came from. How much will you drill that into your guys all week long that they're going to have to bring their own energy?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, you know, this fall camp, our kind of message was creating the identity for this team, the 2022 team. It's different than the 21 team. It's different than the 99 team. No disrespect to either one of those teams, but this is different. This is the 2022 Marshall identity. And when we talked about that, we talked about making sure that we play to a standard, not to helmet logos or rankings or crowds or games. Hey, this is a big game. This is not a big game. This is a home game. This is a away game. And I think when you take that approach, you can ride the ebbs and flows of a season, you know, and you can eliminate some peaks and valleys in your performance. Doesn't matter if we play it, you know, in the Joan. Doesn't matter if we play at Notre Dame Stadium. Doesn't matter if we play in Bowling Green. We play to a standard, just like, you know, Tuesday practice is to a standard. I think taking that approach eliminates the ebbs and flows of, like you say, big game as far as amount of people, smaller stadium, road game. At some point, we're going to have to play some weather, you know, games that are going to come into play. But I think if you keep that approach on playing to a standard, then you're not playing to the outside uncontrollables, if that makes sense.
Cassidy with WWK. We talked about you know, how you guys did offensively on the ground, but your run defense is really strong as well, especially on the front. And Owen Porter got his second pick in 2 games. Just how do you evaluate their performance and specifically Owen's?
Yeah, well, I mean, I said, you know, last week when he scooped the fumble and scored that, you know, Owen Porter is probably the poster child of what a Marshall football player, you know, looks like. Take the face off, but just take his character, take his grit, take his location, take his love for this university, love for his team, love the way he plays the game. So anytime you get to see those type of guys have success, meaning the guys that play the game the right way, you know, care about the university, care about this state, that's always a plus. I think the beauty of our run defense is the same thing that's the beauty of our running game. In practice, those guys go against the offense, who last week rushed for 200 plus, this week rushed for 200 plus. Defensively, we go against 4 Power 5 D linemen every day in practice. So it kind of works both ways. And when we talked about building this roster the right way, the way you get better on Saturdays is to get better in practice. So you got better competition. You know, we were at Alabama, you had Jerry Jeudy going against Patrick Surtain. I mean, you're probably not going to see another Patrick Surtain on game day, you know. So if we can create that type of competitive practice and with depth and getting quality reps. But then when you get to game day, I mean, you should have a little bit of advantage, or you should be battle tested, if that makes sense. And I think that showed up a little bit Saturday. Obviously, I say it over and over, you got to stay healthy, because we could have 4 Power 5 D linemen, but if none of them are healthy, then we're not going against 4 Power 5 D linemen. So I think being able to have a better roster structure allows us to practice better, which allows us to play better.
Also on WRBC, this week, Bowling Green, what is the challenge? What do they do that stands out to you? What do you need to focus on?
Yeah, well, defensively, they're a multiple front group. Last week, they kind of played one front, so you could kind of get on the sideline and draw it up and correct it and talk about it. This group plays multiple fronts. They move a lot to combat some size, disadvantage. And the disadvantage of not being 6'4", 280, they create an advantage in being a little bit smaller and quicker. So when they're moving now, you're getting on edges. You got to make sure your combinations are right. You got to make sure your footwork is tight. Creates a lot of issues where, who are we blocking? How are we comboing to them? That type of deal in the run game. Obviously in protection, because they move a lot, you create the same thing. So it's going to be big for us to be able to concentrate on being able to block their movement in their front, which I think they do a really good job. Offensively, I think Coach Leffler does a really good job of play action pass, multiple formations, multiple motions, creating a lot of eye candy. It's going to force us to have discipline, because if you're looking at the wrong thing and there goes that guy and you're supposed to be on him, you're going to have an issue. I think he does a really good job of attacking defenses without confusing his offense. So we're going to have to do last week it was more of the bigger, stronger, got to make sure you're fitting the right guy, making sure you got eyes on the right, tight end, based on his alignments. This week is going to be more identifying the entire formation and understanding the communication with checks versus motion, empties, different formations, play action pass. Everybody can't run up the tackle in football because they'll be behind you. So this week is going to challenge our discipline and how we play, not necessarily the physicality or not necessarily the moment, if that makes sense. Meaning, hey, I know, on 3rd and 5, Notre Dame's going to try and get the ball to this tight end, so I got to make sure I'm on it. Well, this week, it's not going to be going to a certain guy. It's going to be going to where you're not. So I got to be where I'm supposed to be.
Woody Woodrum with ESPN in Huntington. Coach, there's a lot of emphasis on the passing game these days, and your quarterback's the most efficient in the nation right now, but the running game seems to still have such a key, and you look at the games this weekend, Appy, Georgia Southern, you all had a back over 100. Texas State over FIU, Conference USA had a guy go over 200. It is running against opponents and stopping the run still maybe the #1 priority for the team.
Yeah, I think however you do it, right, whether it's truly just running the ball and stopping the run, whether it's RPOing and, blocking the guy you can't block with a throw. I think that's what started to happen a little bit in college football, and people think, they throw it every down. Well, if the guy that we can't block doesn't move, then we're going to throw it. If the guy that we can't block moves, then we'll hand it off. So I think sometimes, from the outside perspective, it's like, man, you threw it every down. Well, tell the defense to move that guy and we'll run it, But that's kind of how it works now. But I still think to the core of the game, the running the ball efficiently and stopping the run is probably the most two important things on both sides of the ball. It creates advantages in so many other areas. You stay out of 2nd and long. You stay out of 3rd and long. Our 3rd down percentage was not great because when we got to 3rd down, it was probably +6. It's tough to get against a good defense. When you get to games where you're, ±5, it's easier to get 3 yards than it is to get 7 yards. Same thing on defense. It's easier to get a team off the field when they need to get 7 yards than they do when they need 3 yards. It allows you to take time off the clock. I think one of the strong points of the app game was the time of possession. So it allows you to keep your defense fresh. So I think there's so many valuable points that come when you can run or stop the run. It's tough to do, but you got to be able to do it consistently. So far this season, we've done a good job. We'll be tested moving forward, and we're going to have to be able to stand up to the challenge.
Coach Jim Workman with Wally's and Wimpy Sports Digest. The offense has been very efficient running the ball and passing the ball. So I wondered, I'm assuming Clint Trickett is calling plays, your offense?
Yep. Clint's calling the plays, the good ones and the bad ones. So when things don't go right, he's calling the play. But no, he's doing a really good job. One of the reasons, I hired Clint because he sees things from the quarterback perspective. So he's able to kind of protect the offense and the quarterback. With certain things that may be great on the board, but from a quarterback perspective, he may not see it as well. He may not feel as comfortable. The timing of things from the quarterback perspective is a little bit different. I think Clint has also been here long enough. He knows our roster. Obviously, being a quarterback, he's understanding and breaking down defenses and what they're doing, what they're trying to do. I think the one thing that he did really a good job of Saturday was he was patient. Sometimes you get in those games and you feel like, man, we got to chuck it and get 80 yards here. We were running the ball, but from a play caller's perspective, sometimes you get bored with 2 and 3 and 4 yards. But he was able to stay patient. That was one of our goals before the game, be patient on first down. Last week, our mentality was rhythm over tempo because I didn't want to wear out our team. We like to play fast-paced. We like to snap it fast. But I felt like Saturday we would be better off having good rhythm but not playing super fast so that we would last, and I think it helped us.
Coach John Ravy with the Associated Press. Two-part question, and it's both about like fans in the community. I wanted to get your reaction about when you stepped off the bus when you got back into town on Saturday. What was your thought about that?
Yeah, I think it was really good. Probably 50, 60 people out at the airport and probably 200 people here at the stadium when we got here. Again, I think it's great for the players. A lot of times, Power 5 schools, bigger schools, the fan following is so massive that, everywhere you go, there's 200 people, 300 people. So you kind of take it for granted. At a smaller school, sometimes you don't get to truly feel the fan involvement and engagement as much. But for those guys that step off that bus and see the community outpour, there were people crying, there were people taking pictures. Again, I think it validates what they do for Marshall. Obviously, they play the game, and everybody's got their why, family, personal things, fun, love, whatever it may be. But I think what that was able to do was validate the importance of what they do for Marshall and this community.
And the other part of that question was you used the word culture a lot. Marshall's culture is like no other. And how important was it for you to learn about the history from the get-go and continuing to play for those that came before you?
Yeah, I think, just like when you get married, anytime you join a new family, knowing the family history is important. I think it can help you understand some of the reasons why things happen. I think it can help you anticipate reactions to some things. I think it can also help you bring value to that family. If you know what's important to them, if you know what they've been through, if you know what exciting moments have been a part of. So for me, one of the first things I wanted to do was learn as much about the history, one, so that I did not disrespect the history. Sometimes a new coach comes in and, hey, we're doing A, B, and C. Well, that's a major disrespect to X, Y, and Z. So I wanted to learn about that. Then I wanted to understand the history and tradition so that I could add to it respectfully. I didn't want to just do something to just say, oh, well, Coach Huff came in and he did this. I wanted to respectfully do something so that it has meaning to the current players and to the, to the past and history. So obviously learning a lot about this place. The surface level history is great, but I think the more and more you get to spend time with, Morehouse and the guys that have been here forever, Landon, and the guys that have been here forever, Cotton, and the history, when you really dig down into it, there's so many more layers that hopefully moments like Saturday can help bring to the surface and not only show the Marshall community, but the world. And I've enjoyed learning those moments, being a part of them, and helping recreate some of those historical moments.
New Creasy, Herald Dispatch. We've talked a lot about newcomers to the team, but two in particular that kind of stood out to me Saturday. Andre Samuels tested a lot, performed well, and then Reese Beerhoff misses that first PAT, but comes back and hits 2 important field goals later on. As a coach, what did you see there?
Yeah, I think you're in two different lanes. I think Andre Sam, obviously being a veteran player, Andre Sam, when he was at McNeese, they played LSU, they played Nebraska. Again, another young man who's been in that arena. I think, again, Andre Sam, a young man who has experienced enough to not let the moment be too big for his technique and fundamentals. Sometimes that happens. And then you have Reese Verhoff, true freshman, who was in high school 6 months ago. Again, not intentionally, but the moment or the arena can be too big for their fundamentals and technique. What does that mean? Instead of blocking out the noise and hearing nothing and just kicking like you would in the backyard, it's, man, I'm kicking at Notre Dame Stadium. Not that he was thinking that while he was kicking, but what happens is if you don't consciously think about your fundamentals and technique, you'll miss an extra point. Obviously, his ability to bounce back hopefully was a combination of his competitive nature and his teammates, saying, instead of saying, boo, you kicker, you're going to walk home, instead of saying, hey, we got you, don't worry about it, we got you. And I think that's starting to happen more, where when guys don't necessarily have the success that everyone would assume, instead of turning your back and saying, man, all he does is kick, why can't he make the kick? Everybody's saying, we got you. So after that missed extra point, we were gonna cross right, because I'm like, okay, the kid's rattled. I don't want to kick off deep and have them, have our defense start in the position. And every guy in that kickoff huddle said, no, coach, we'll cover it. So we kicked it deep. He ended up kicking it, 3 yards out of the end zone. They shut it down. So again, to me, that's how you build confidence in failure. When the people around you still show enough confidence in you and in them and in protecting you that you can still perform. Hopefully that helped him build a little confidence, which came back, and he probably made 2 of the biggest field goals of the year, because we weren't able to move the ball in the low red zone. So I think, again, the culture on this team is starting to correct some issues that we've had in the past.
Coach Jason Philly on Fox Sports Radio in Huntington. Offensive line play for you this year. I know we're 2 games in, strong running game, good protection for Henry. How would you assess the way that they've grown together, a lot of new faces, and the chemistry with that offensive line group?
Yeah, well, one, they're not as new as public perception. A lot of these guys have been here a while, they just haven't started, right? So doesn't mean, like, for an example, Cedrice, he didn't start, but he played a lot of football Saturday. And really that whole group has been that way. They may have not started a lot last year, but they played a lot of football. So I think that helps. 2, I think Coach Morrissey's doing a really good job of developing depth, because the issue that we run into at this level is how long can we stay healthy. I think you saw a little bit of that last year with James McGee. So we got 6 or 7 guys that we feel really, really good with right now. I think also the temperament in that room is right where you want it to be for an O-lineman. The guys are challenging each other. The guys are, when Trent Holler went down, his back tightened up, every guy went over to him and said, you're going back in the game. And he looked at him and said, I know I am, give me a minute. And that's the kind of, like, mentality you want. And it wasn't, hey, we think you're soft. It was, we need you to get up off the turf and go back in this game. And his response was, I know you need me to get up off the turf. Give me a minute, let me catch my breath, and I'm going back in the game. So I think the temperament is right. And I know a lot of it sounds coach talk and cliche. Culture and intensity and intangibles will keep you in a lot of games. Execution's going to win it. If you guys remember, fourth quarter, they go up and we get the ball in like the minus 20. Well, last year we didn't have the intangibles to go 97 yards and score a touchdown. So it was all on execution. So if we didn't call the perfect play, if somebody dropped the ball, if somebody didn't go the right way, then you don't get it. The intangibles get everybody to say, we're going to get a yard here. I'm going to communicate my call. I'm going to go the right way. I'm going to block my guy. The execution is what you've seen Kalen LeBourne and Talik Keaton do. Catch the ball and stretch, break a couple tackles, put his hand down, balance, go score. What you saw Henry do on the touchdown, okay? The first read's not there, second read's not there. Let me scramble. Now it turns into scramble drill. Here comes Devin. So that's the execution part. The intangibles is when they walked on the field, they knew they were going to score. that's where we are now. Now, it's my job, it's our job to keep it there, but I think the guys that have been here a while could see there was a little bit of difference in the mindset of that team than it was last year. And that's no knock to last year. It just takes time to get to that point, in your tenure and your culture, if that makes sense.
Coach John Ravy with the Associated Press. I asked, your players were asked for a couple examples of what makes you unique, and the two things that stood out to me were magic act and dancing. I'm not sure about either. I haven't witnessed them,
No.
but,
Well, first of all, I don't really show much fun with any of them, so they're always like, Coach, you got to do something fun. So the last day of summer camp, we had a magician, Carl Michael, come, who's a national magician, and just kind of a end of camp, take a breath before we hit the season. And probably, if they had that energy on Saturday that they had for the Magic Show, we would have won by 50. No question. But again, you forget they're kids, right? So abracadabra still makes them laugh. It's weird. It really is. But the magician had me dance for them for that day, so that everybody, I'm sure it's probably somewhere on the social verse out there floating around. But yeah, it was good. It was good.
But it shows that you're not just all business. You are even keeled, but I guess you have to entertain. It's a long year, so
Well, I think what you got to do is you got to show your players that you are real. That means sometimes you got to be hard on them. That means sometimes you got to put your arm around them. That means sometimes you got to laugh and and joke with them. But I think again, when they see, or anybody in any organization, when you see that your leader is real, you have a deeper connection, you have a deeper understanding, you have a deeper appreciation for everything involved with what comes from there.
Coach Woody Wickerman, ESPN again. Bowling Green is a kind of different place. I mean, you're out in the middle of an open field. Wind's always blowing there. It's more like a high school game because they really count on the college kids. It is the ultimate college town. Not a lot else going on there. And Marshall has gone up there and won in like 54 and 2000. We've been 2-11 at that place. Some really good teams have gone there. And the 98 team was 12-1. Went up there and lost on Halloween. So, I mean, at least mindset-wise, you just got to put that in the back of your mind, don't you, and remind the kids, hey, Marshall has come here and not had much success. Let's change that this Saturday.
Is their field 100 yards by 53 in the third?
Maybe.
Do they have goalposts? Do they have goalposts? We'll be all right. If they got those two things, we'll be all right. Spot the ball, give me the call, we'll be all right. I think, again, when you live in I don't think any of these kids in here would remember anything other than, unless there was Randy Moss on that team, they probably remember his name. I think, again, but when you talk about a environment or a culture that you don't know, like I don't know what was the vibe, where people injured. If we lose 15 guys a day in practice, we're going to be 0-12 up there, 0-13 up there. So I think, again, you go back to your process. It's how hard do we prepare this week in practice? How hard do we play on Saturday? And how well we execute? And unless they've got, some sideways goalposts or the field's only 90 yards, everything else is the same. And I think when you stay in that mode, you can eliminate you've had trouble with this team, or you've had trouble in this arena, or, this team has always had Marshall's number. I think you can eliminate that because it's ultimately going to come down to yesterday's practice, today's practice, the rest of this week's practice. How do we maximize the time between the last walkthrough Friday and kickoff on Saturday? When we come out of the tunnel, do we play with the identity that we want to play with? And then do we execute? That's really what it's going to come down. And I think this team really is starting to believe that. It's not, we've beat this school before. And so I really think they understand that those three things every week is going to be deciding whether we win or lose. Somewhere in there, maybe you have really good practice, you play really hard, but you don't execute. Saturday, if we'd have turned the ball over, I don't know if the score would have been the same, but you look at 3 turnovers, should have been 4, but 3 turnovers to 0. huge difference. You know, so we go up there and we have 3 turnovers. We practiced really hard that week. We played really hard, but if we had 3 turnovers, then the score may have been different. So I think, again, if you stay focused on those 3 things, which are all controllable by us. I can't control what the 98 team did. I can't control if the wind's going to blow or not. But those 3 things, myself, the staff, and the players can control, and I think we'll be okay. Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys up in Bowling Green, and go Hurt.